Fox 2 presents Hancock and Kelley.
And good Sunday morning. Welcome to Hancock and Kelley on Fox 2, where we take on the top issues of the week. On the right, John Hancock.
Top of the morning.
On the left, Michael Kelley.
Good morning.
I'm Andy Banker. On the agenda, St. Louis to London. Politicians hail new nonstop flights from Lambert to Heathrow as a game changer. Are they overstating that just a bit? The H&K conversation is back. I go in depth with St. Louis Mayor Kara Spencer as she marks 1 year in office. What's gotten better? What hasn't? And what's her relationship like with the governor now that she's suing the state over his signature issue? The White House hails St. Louis's Anheuser-Busch for investing $600 million in U.S. operations by posting a picture of a MAGA mug. And our quote of the week is from a St. Louis congressman who's now throwing around the I word, as in impeachment. Is impeaching President Trump again going to be priority one if voters put Democrats in control of Congress come November? We begin with the inaugural British Airways St. Louis to London nonstop flight. It took off this past week with various dignitaries on board, including the mayor, economic leaders, and St. Louis County Executive Sam Page, who went to court to keep from handing over the reins of county government to County Council Chairwoman Rita Days during his travels abroad.
About our relationships, we understand how important that is. When British Airways, a world-class carrier, recognizes St. Louis on the global stage, that's a big deal.
And politicians on both sides of the aisle agree with Page. Republican U.S. Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri, for instance, who famously sued Page over his COVID policies when Schmidt was Attorney General of the state of Missouri, says this flight reestablishes Missouri as a global hub for commerce and tourism. Is this that big of a deal, John and Michael?
Well, it's a big deal. I mean, having a nonstop flight to London is helpful. It's economically helpful for the, for the region. I don't know that it's that big of a game changer, however. And Sam Page, how about this guy? What a run of bad luck he's on. He got the middle seat on this flight, Andy. I mean, he's just had a tough time.
Now, you say that in jest.
I do.
He says that in jest. Michael, is that big of a deal?
Well, it's a big deal when things haven't been going your way. I'm not sure it's as big a deal as it was in the 1980s when it was happening on a daily basis a couple of times. But look,
we have this. We have the nonstop from a few years ago to Frankfurt, Germany. So we are an international
right. And
again.
when you hit bottom, you got to climb up. And I'm grateful to see us starting to be back on that world stage. I hope that it helps bring commerce to the St. Louis area. And the politicians sure think so, because they all went over there to celebrate it.
Well, there's big news on the data center front. A massive project gets the green light in the city of St. Louis, and there's a split verdict on the future of mega data in Franklin County. First up, the data center proposal near the Armory site in Midtown St. Louis.
The quality of life goes down, they're noisy, they suck vital resources. Our taxpayers, we will be paying higher water bills and electricity bills to pay for the energy these things require. I think it's a terrible idea.
What the mayor and city leaders have put in is checks and balances to make sure they follow through on the promises. This is a win-win situation for the city.
Mr. Clemens there is essentially the voice of the St. Louis City Public School District and its employee unions. They support this proposal largely because of the boost to the city's property tax base. The city's Board of Public Service approved a conditional use permit for the $3 billion development at the old Famous Bar warehouse near the Armory in Midtown St. Louis. The Franklin County Planning and Zoning Commission recommended a 613-acre data center development near the Shaw Nature Preserve in Gray Summit, but voted against a close to 500-acre development near Pacific. John and Michael, opposition to all of these proposals has been very vocal, continues to be.
Yeah, and I think it's really rooted in a national narrative that's based on some false facts. The lady that who was quite genuine in her expression that she thinks that this is going to do this stuff to water in the city of St. Louis, it's not the case. We didn't hear this when there were a dozen other data centers were being built in the city. They're happening on a daily basis. People go zooming by this Famous Bar warehouse, a relic of the past, if you will, that St. Louis has just had sitting there like a white elephant. It's time that we realize that this is where the global economy is headed, and why should St. Louis be sitting on the sidelines? And I just hate the fact that there's some big world national narrative of scare and fear tactics that have people believing a false narrative.
But is everyone else so smart and we're just the everyday Joe that worries about this is stupid?
Pretty much, Andy. No. You know, the thing here, one, that property at the Armory wasn't producing any revenue for the city. Two, right. The famous bar, and they changed their proposal. It was going to be the Armory itself was going to be the data center. Now, the famous bar warehouse is a data center, and the Armory is going to be type A office space. Couple hundred offices there. So I think it's a good use.
Andy, and there was a fear of the railroads when they were being built as well. And as a result of St. Louis's fear of it, Chicago became the second city.
Now, any issue with this, you know, one of the big data center developers behind a lot of these proposals is Bob Clark, the founder of Clayco Construction. He was on the flight to London, apparently, or he's on the trip with the mayor. And St. Louis Mayor Carrie Spencer, and he is her biggest donor.
So, and Anheuser-Busch has been a big donor of past mayors. Look, at the end of the day, does Bob Clark have a profit motive? Likely. Who wouldn't? But data centers are the future. This is a man that is trying to pull St. Louis along into the future. At a time when everybody else wants to hold us back, I wish this town had 20 Bob Clarks running around trying to bring revenue and opportunity to St. Louis.
The Hancock and Kelley conversation is back. I sit down with Mayor Spencer for an exclusive, in-depth discussion as she marks her first year in office. We cover everything from the handling of the May 16th tornado to the city's continuing issue with lawless behavior and her showdown with the governor over hiring more police.
So help me God. Congratulations. Thank you.
Is the city better than it was in April 2025?
Well, we are better prepared for natural disasters. We have done some incredible work investing in operationalizing how our city departments function together. You've seen us make it through a winter storm with much better response.
We're in the tornado! Oh!
There aren't words.
Being slammed by a tornado, having our city hit so hard by obviously unexpected and unprecedented natural disaster. In some ways, many of our neighborhoods are not better off than they were in April of 2025. But we are putting processes in place, programs in place, and funding in place to help those who were impacted and to put our city as a whole on the road to recovery. Something that's very new for the city this last year is our active coordination and the tailored weather reporting that the city of St. Louis gets from the National Weather Service. They're embedded in our emergency command apparatus. The sirens going off here in the city, the texts, the phone calls, the emails, the national weather, those sort of activations that are making sure that our community is aware.
There's like a process and a protocol that maybe wasn't there a year ago.
That's absolutely right,
okay.
Yeah.
Public safety is one issue where progress is far less evident. The city is still plagued by a sense of lawlessness, from street takeovers to reckless driving and gun crimes. Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe signed the state takeover of the city police department into law to force the city to spend more on police and hire more officers. A police board of city residents appointed by the governor now runs the department. The mayor is the only non-appointed member of the board, and she's behind a new lawsuit seeking a return to local control.
Crime numbers are going down. Of course, the public safety system has been greatly challenged by the state takeover of the police department and the divorcing of the police department from every other department in city government. That has been a huge loss to our city, to our community, and I believe to public safety in general. The state board, my fellow commissioners, as well as the chief, are well aware of my desire to see a focus on reckless driving and enforcement. We do have less officers now, and I think that
What's your plan for hiring more?
the challenge with asking me that as mayor is that I am under the current orientation, not in charge of making those decisions. The HR department for the police department completely divorced itself from our personnel department, and those decisions are unfortunately and very recklessly no longer under the control of the city of St. Louis.
You could take a plan to the board.
The solution, in my view, is to bring the police department back where it belongs, back where every other police department in the United States sits, which is under control of the city in which it protects. And that is the solution that makes most sense. I mean, under the state control of our police department, we are spending tens of millions of dollars under a state law that requires the city to pay for health insurance for life for our police officers. And while that's a nice thing to offer retirees, it does nothing to recruit new officers, except it spends tens of millions of dollars we would be much better off spending on the initial salary so we could get those police officer numbers up.
She says the legal fight over police control won't strain her relationship with the governor, which had been strengthened during the response to the May 16th tornado.
We definitely disagree on the police issue, but it's clear to me that the governor cares about his hometown. His hometown is St. Louis, and we have a great working relationship on a whole host of other issues.
Have you talked to him about the lawsuit?
You know,
is that going to
our
sour
teams have.
things?
You know, look, you know, we're both professionals, we're adults, and I think we're able to put differences aside to make sure that we're continuing to work on the issues we both care about.
And one of those issues is saving downtown St. Louis. She says her administration is chipping away with improvements the public can see and improvements behind the scenes.
Recovering from the tornado is a priority. It should be a priority, and supporting our neighborhoods. But in cities that work, their downtowns subsidize the rest of the city function, and the city of St. Louis should be no different. We have all the bones and all of the tools that we need to make our downtown phenomenal. We just need to activate it. We're making it easier to invest in St. Louis, and one of the key things, one of the pain points that we were hearing from developers for many years was this requirement that in order to get a building permit, you had to submit that downtown in person. You couldn't do it online. We've eliminated that. We've put the process online. We've made it easy to do. We've also brought online CityStat. You know, we've made it easier to interface with the city of St. Louis. When you've got a pothole or you've got a stop sign's down, you can just dial 311. Our trash collection has been phenomenal. Part of that is making tough calls and tough decisions and tough cuts. I cut the alley recycling program. It wasn't working, and being bold and being willing to make those cuts where necessary is part of what we need to do to make our city operate better. We're reporting back to the community how well we're doing in improving those city services. You're right, on public safety, on downtown, and on making city services more excellent. And we're doing that.
A lot there. Your take. Start with you, Michael.
Well, I think it's encouraging that the mayor sat down and talked to you and actually gave you substantive answers on some questions. I mean, she has some tough things that she's dealing with. I think all of us agree she got dealt a bad hand with the tornado. We're through her first year. I think the proof is in the pudding over the next 3, but I'm grateful that she's sitting down and taking the issues head on. We hadn't seen that for the previous 4 years.
John?
I'd give her a passing grade on the scorecard. I think she's wrong about the police. The police board that's in place, those are all St. Louis City residents. And we've got to have more money to hire more officers, and that's what they're trying to do.
Ahead on Hancock and Kelley, another big political win for Missouri's governor, but will he win at the ballot box when it comes to repealing the state income tax?
To hear more, listen to the podcast. Just search for Hancock and Kelley.
Missouri voters will decide whether to eliminate the state's income tax. State lawmakers have approved a constitutional amendment to phase out the 4.7% tax. Supporters believe getting rid of it will drive economic growth. Opponents say the state will simply have to shift the tax burden to sales taxes to make up for nearly $9 billion yearly in lost revenue.
So if you're thinking about an $8.5 billion loss in general revenue, that means an 8.5% increase in your sales taxes.
And whether we're going to have a system in place that actually helps grow Missouri's economy, or if we're going to just keep treading water.
If approved by voters, state lawmakers would begin phasing out the tax next year. We talked, guys, last week about polling showing weak support for this among voters. Can it pass? I mean, the legislature put it on the ballot, but it's up to we the people now.
Right. Yeah, I think it can pass. I mean, if you give people the option, would you like to have your income tax eliminated? I think there's a good chance that it passes. And the polling is, I've seen contrary polling to what we had last week.
Why not, Michael?
Why shouldn't we pass it? We haven't got enough time here. I dealt with that last week. Why I don't think it's going to pass is because there is going to be a funded opposition. People realize the consequences of this grab by the rich. And I'm confident we're going to be having a very robust conversation for the next several months as this misguided policy gets addressed.
All we know is that every state that has eliminated the income tax is growing.
Still to come on Hancock and Kelley, our quote of the week from a St. Louis congressman who seems to think it's time to once again impeach President Trump. And the Trump White House salutes St. Louis beer giant Anheuser-Busch with a MAGA mug. The White House praises Anheuser-Busch and raises eyebrows. A White House social media post hailing the news that the St. Louis beer-making giant is investing $600 million into its U.S. operations features a mug full of beer with the Make America Great slogan and a picture of the president raising his fist in the air after he was shot in Pennsylvania during a 2024 campaign event. AB is adding 15 training centers across the U.S., modeled after the one that opened in St. Louis in 2022. How about that mug, Michael Kelley?
What a difference a couple of years makes. Remember, it wasn't too long ago that Donald Trump and his supporters were shooting up cans of Budweiser and Bud Light over, ridiculousness. Hey, good. Politicians take credit for other people's work. That's what they're doing here. Good for them.
Yeah, and the underlying...
Is it clever?
Sure.
Is it effective?
No, I don't think it is. But the underlying thing here is that AB InBev is pouring a lot of money into this country, and that is a positive thing. So kudos to the president for recognizing it.
Take credit for it.
Whoever, no, I mean, he can take credit for whatever, but this is an Anheuser-Busch decision.
Our quote of the week is from St. Louis Democrat Congressman Wesley Bell. He has sent a message to voters from his official congressional email account suggesting President Trump should be impeached again. He says, quote, President Trump's recent comments about wiping out an entire civilization in Iran are just the latest in a very long line of disturbing behavior. He simply shouldn't be president. Then he asks voters, should President Trump be impeached and removed from office? Michael, is this part of the Democrats' playbook if they retake control of Congress?
Well, it's definitely what Democratic voters want to hear. They're really frustrated with the breaking of the norms that the Trump administration has done. Whether or not that's a smart political tactic for the Democrats, I'm not sure it is. Let's just go win in November and take back the House and the Senate and hold this man accountable.
Impeach one more time?
Yeah, I think they'll go for it. I think the Democrats will go for it. I think the politics of it won't be good. It's never been good. You go back to Bill Clinton, and the politics of it usually ricochets on the party that's prosecuting.
Final thoughts are next, and we remember a friend who loved St. Louis, a newspaper founder, a talk show panelist, a radio host, a candidate for Congress, a former Republican speechwriter, and he's a liberal Democrat. Ray Hartmann, tragically killed in a traffic accident Thursday. We lost a great St. Louisan Thursday. To say Ray Hartmann was one of a kind is an understatement. He was a liberal Democrat who started as a speechwriter for Republican U.S. Senator Kit Bond of Missouri. He founded the Riverfront Times newspaper and the political roundtable show Donnybrook on 9 PBS. He hosted radio shows. He was even a Democrat candidate for Congress in 2024. He was killed Thursday when a semi-truck lost a wheel and the wheel hit his vehicle near 40 and 270. Ray was 73. I'm so sad about this, John and Michael.
Yeah, me too. Ray and I were texting just the other day, scheduled a lunch for next week. We get together about once a month and talk. And, Ray was a very thoughtful guy who was very gifted with the written word. He really, truly gifted as a writer.
He loves St. Louis.
Yeah, and as a liberal like myself, he was kind of the godfather of progressive liberal thought in the media here in St. Louis and was always kind to me when I ran into him in public. giving positive thoughts. So many of my friends, both Republicans and Democrats, Republicans surprisingly, had this intimate relationship with Ray, and that just goes to the types of friendships that he made, and I think it's something that you and I try to emulate with getting along with the other side.
Thank you both. We'll miss you, Ray. We'll see you next week.